I remember when it first hit. It was in like April of last year, and Dylan Mulvaney was suddenly their spokesperson, and it kind of took off as a viral sensation. It coincided with the head of marketing for Bud Light saying some things on a podcast about, how they had to diversify away from their fratty base. Well, that didn't sit so well with the fratty base. This sort of wokeism, I think people realized that it had taken over in a way that was not actually smart. And Rob, you at the time, you and I were talking, and you were like, that's it. You know what? I'm buying Molson-Coors because this is you can drink Coors Light. It's a very tradable, not as easy as, say, the Delaware court system versus Texas, right? But this is sort of a tradable option here in that Bud Light, Coors Light, hey, sort of same product, different brand without all the stink around it. And you were spot on. And I told some of the viewers, I don't ever like to tell them specifically how they should trade, but I did say, I have a friend who's buying Molson-Coors in this. And then, by the way, you sold it. And I told them when you sold it too. It was kind of an obvious play, but not everybody did it. What do you think? Here we are 1 year later.
Yep.
And you got a stock that, you got out of Molson-Coors, it's down, right? So clearly people aren't drinking as much beer in general, I guess. Bud Light can't recover, and I actually feel bad. I feel bad for the workers. I feel bad for a lot of people because I think that, it just was not very smart.
Yeah, it's really just an interesting case study. So I think that whole incident started, as you pointed out, it was like something like April 1st of last year when the Dylan thing dropped. And I think around like April 12th, you texted me a New York Post article. And this was actually at the time we were kind of brainstorming 76 research or hatching our plans. And I think the whole dynamic there really contributed to our thought process. But there was a New York Post article and it really signaled like, hey, like there's going to be a revolt here. The customers there's a boycott. And I went online at that point and I said, okay, what is everyone saying about this? What is everyone on Wall Street saying about this? What are the analysts saying? And they weren't saying anything. It was like as if it wasn't happening. And I think to me that signaled, okay, there's a blind spot here because, no one's talking about it. It's too politically sensitive or too politically incorrect. And, no one's writing about it and the stocks haven't really moved. So I saw an opportunity there. One thing I guess I learned in college being one of those fratty guys that the Bud Light executive was sort of poking fun at.
You knew that Coors Light was better, huh?
Yeah, one thing I did to be honest, I do prefer it, but it's like, look, there's not a heck. One thing about the beer market is that loyalty is not as high as it is maybe with other consumer products like tobacco. Actually, notoriously, cigarettes have very sticky brand loyal customers, but beer drinkers aren't necessarily that loyal and they move around. And look, Coors Light is a perfectly good substitute for Bud Light, if not better. And the thing that was interesting about Molson-Coors is that really like they made a lot of their money specifically off of Coors Light. So there was going to be a market share shift. I felt it wasn't priced in. I jumped on it. But I think, in terms of why that was more of a trade rather than a long-term investment, the beer market itself it isn't necessarily in my personal opinion, the most interesting or attractive, like structural part of the consumer landscape.
Okay.
There's just sort of this longer term demographic, kind of issue where the younger people are drinking less beer, moving more towards spirits and frankly to cannabis. So beer growth is not, the long-term outlook for beer, no matter whether it's Bud Light or Coors Light or whatever, is not great. So
that's contributing as we look at the downside, right, in the stocks right now, because people are opting for different things, whether it be wine or spritzers or, there's more optionality. It's not as
there's some innovation in the category.
Yeah. But not that I'm going to cut this woman any slack at all. I mean, I think that she disrespected her core customer, which is just fundamentally big part of the problem here. And the company didn't respond to it fast enough. They didn't understand essentially what was going on. The Wall Street community was terrified, as you pointed out, by everything that was happening, and they were afraid to say boo. But what she was perhaps trying to do is diversify the customer base. I mean, her mistake was that you don't diversify by alienating, the very fundamental core group that brought you to the dance right in the first place. And so that was, I think the biggest mistake. And it's like, look, be careful what you say. And I think she was someone who sort of symbolized the wokeism that you're getting from the left that's taken over Wall Street, as we were just saying right now with all this DEI stuff. So there's more out there. There's more opportunity.
Was she trying to diversify, or was she pushing her own personal?
It's a good question. I'm being nice. Yeah. And I'm just trying to I try and rationalize these things. Like what could possibly, because I understand you wanting to expand your market, but do you really want to kill what you got? You are the number one beer brand in the world. Like, why would you be so stupid? Because politics. Maybe they don't make enough money. They're more concerned about their political agenda than actually growing their product.
But look how it went down, right? You had someone who perhaps had a political motivation or a political agenda that she wanted to promote, using the company as sort of a basis to do it. And then she wasn't stopped. No one said no, because everyone's sort of stopped in their tracks, or afraid to say no, or afraid that they'll be called a name if they say, look, our customers aren't going to react.
It's funny. They got a huge award, the marketing department at Cannes. It was they have big awards. It's not just the Cannes Film Festival. They've got the Cannes Marketing Awards, and it's the marketing award of the year. And they got a marketing award after all that. And I'm like, wow, you guys, you're about marketing, right? If you're about marketing, aren't you actually about expanding a customer base? No. They're clearly not. You get the award because you just downsized the company, and it's now struggling with, an environment. I don't know, Rob, if they're ever going to recover. And I say that because, here, as we look at this stock chart right here, let me see if I can pull it up for people. It's done, right? I don't know what it's going to take. It may just be fundamentally that this company has seen its day.
Yeah. And I guess a few months ago, Trump had sort of forgiven them, or had, because they are still a large.
Well, yeah, they sponsor UFC, right? And his buddy runs the fighting championship thing. I believe they've got a big deal, right?
Yeah, and it's still
so funny how those all work
in the U.S. And look,
Kidrock too, but I'm betting you anything that's a mega sponsorship deal. Maybe Kidrock has a deal with UFC, and Dana's forgiven Bud Light, and so Kidrock and Trump and everybody. Look, money makes the world go round, I guess. And so Kidrock has made a decision to forgive them, as has Dana, for a $150 million sponsorship.
Yep. And the investment lessons are kind of interesting too. You want to be careful here, because actually what Molson-Coors, reported in their most recent quarter is that, there is this sort of shift in market share, this reversion, and there was this overstocking problem. So that's why the stock has been so weak in the past few weeks or months. Yeah. It kind of bit them in the behind, so to speak, when they, this market share volatility. So, as investors, I would just caution people, when these kind of political angles do surface within the market,
don't be afraid to
bail. You got to be
bail.
careful. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that was, the moral of the story is Bud Light is not, if you were in shares of Bud, and by the way, it's a hugely diversified conglomerate, merger between a Brazilian company and a Belgian beer company. And they distribute a ton of beers, any beer you can really think of. A lot of people have actually moved towards craft beers, and they're saying, okay, go local, et cetera. A lot of those, by the way, have gotten scooped up too. So it's a very diversified company with a lot of different beer brands. But I think if they're smart, they're going to start diversifying into more than just, as you pointed out, beer, because the market for drinks is growing in new and different ways.